Well guys, we're back with another video. I haven't got a lot done since the end of the last video, except for just been doing some grinding, some cleaning on the frame and what have you. We're gonna get at least some of the spring hangers mounted and welded on. The problem is, I like the ones that I bought for the shackle hangers, but I do not like the ones I bought for the leaf hangers. They're kind of these universal ones, and you know what they say about universal? That means that it fits everything, but what it really means is that it fits nothing. And it always requires a bunch more work to make it work, and I could damn near just build my own for the amount of effort it'll take to get this one to work. I'm actually thinking about ordering a stock one and just scooching it forward because it just wraps the side of the frame, which kind of would be easier. So, I don't know, may get on there and order one of those, but I definitely figured out, I know exactly where I want the ones that go here. This is where they were on center before this mark. That's 1 inch forward, that's 1.5 inch forward. If I just line the end of this up flush with the end of the frame, about right there, it kind of comes just slightly in between those two marks. So there's nothing stopping me from getting these welded on, so let's weld them on. In a perfect world, I'd get the spring hangers on there first and make sure that they're gonna work there. So maybe I'll just tack them, I don't know. One other thing I think we might do, we might start clearing the inner fenders because holes are going to have to be made for wherever these new shock towers are going to go. Decisions have to be made. As much as I've loved keeping the factory jack all these years, it at least has to come out temporarily. We'll see if we can make it fit back in there afterwards. So I ordered a set of these, they're like the factory ones basically, and I can just scooch them forward. But then I also ordered, Moto Built sells a set of them. They're meant for the rear of the Jeep, but they come up and cradle around the frame like the factory one instead of having to build down off the bottom. So I just ordered both of them, and whichever one I like better is the one we're going to use. Unfortunately, I gotta wait a ways for them to ship, so we got to find some other stuff to do. So I got centers marked on all this stuff, and I swear when I hold this on there and feel like the gap's the same on both sides, I swear it looks like this bushing hole is just a little bit crooked. So I'm gonna get it as close as I can by eyeball, clamp it, and then if I don't like how this is in comparison to the frame, I might have to tweak it a little bit. I'd rather the bracket look a little crooked and not this be crooked. So, but I think I'm gonna shoot for that one, honestly, and have this just hanging off the front a little bit. And then I will put a weld across the top there. And after that, I will try to cut off whatever's left hanging over. And hopefully it doesn't run into the bumper. I don't know. I guess let's clamp it on there. That looks pretty good right there. So this bracket's narrower than the frame, but the edge of this bushing and the frame are both 2.5, or like very close to it. So in theory, it should line up. And there's definitely a little bit of a gap. According to this, I need to move it that way a little bit. So one of my centering marks must be a little bit off. Oops. The back looks like it's closer this way, like I need to twist it, but I don't know, I just gotta run my eyeball down this. It's a guessing game at this point. Oh yeah, it's definitely twisted a little bit. So I spent all that time in the last video making sure these were in the brackets straight, and they are. But I don't know, my eyeball is telling me that now that that bushing sleeve is like leaning a little bit that way. I mean, there's like a little bit of a bow on this outside wall and maybe a little bit of one on the bottom. At this point, I think I'm splitting hairs. I think we're just gonna tack it. Well, here goes nothing. Let's hope I got it right. Guess there's one way to figure this out. Zero this out on the frame. Guess I was wrong. Oh, it was a little bit. There's zero right there. Going for it. .1, whatever, close enough. Hell, now that says 0.1, so we're basically even. Owie, it drew blood. I'm writing my senator. Alright, well there they are. That's what they're gonna look like. I ended up scooching them 1.5 inches from where they're at. I'm gonna try to go for 2.5 back there. If it's not gonna work out, I'll do 2. They are aligned as best as I can align them. I'm really torn. I wanna just go ahead and weld these. It is kind of like the cardinal mistake to put the cart before the horse. As far as this, get a nice hot weld in there, and then I'm gonna cut the corner of this off. And I measured from this hole out to here, and I think it's not as long as from the center of this hole out to here. So in other words, I think that piece will sit inside here. Granted, there's a weld in there. I do have to cut this bottom out, but all it has to do is not bang into it. If it bangs into it, I'm just gonna have to grind some of it off of there. But the bumper only goes down this low, so it would literally just be on this edge. So I've been pulling tape measurements off of different spots on the frame to see if I got these the same, and it's pretty close. So first I measured from the front of this body mount halfway up it like this to that front edge, right? Did that on both sides. I measured from this hole, but that one the tape doesn't sit in it very good, so then I measured from, I just hooked the tape into this hole and measured. And every single way I measure it, showing this passenger side one is like maybe a 30-second farther forward. And I think that's in my window of tolerance, because I don't know if I cut this off and redo it that I can even get it that close again. So I don't think a 30 seconds gonna kill me. The more important one is that I get the hangers back there. Those are the ones that need to be more accurate. Those are the ones that could cause you to track the wrong way. On these ones, the shackle angle will just change a little bit, so I'm really not that worried about it. To be honest, I'm pretty confident in my positioning of these. They're where they're gonna go. You did it right. Let's just freaking weld them. Whew, doggies. It is freaking cold out here. Look at that big old fat freaking weld. My goodness. It's funny how sometimes you weld and it just looks so great, and other times it just irritates you. That gap was so big. There's like 4 passes in there. And the first pass is actually the one I didn't like how it worked. I put a second cap over it, still didn't like it, so then I did a high and a low, and I don't like how it looks, but golly, it should be penetrated. Now I need to work on slicing this edge off. Hey, touch that, Dan. That's not hot or nothing. I need to cut these chunks out of the bumper. And I've decided I'm going to switch up my winch situation, so I'm going to pull this winch off of here. Don't use a normal grinding wheel very often, but this one was handy. Alrighty, yeah. This is how my package came, so I'm glad the thing's in there. Like I said, I ordered 2 different sets of spring hangers, a factory style and a moto-built style. The moto-built ones are gonna be days, but apparently I got one of the 2 factory styles anyway. I love how Amazon works. So we can at least mock one up and see if it's gonna work. I feel like it should. I mean, it's meant for it. Let's see what we're working with here, Goose. Whew! About wiped out. These used to go right about there. Let's see. I didn't make my 2-inch mark yet, dang it. Ugh. We'll call it right about there. So, for this to work, I'm gonna have to notch that out so that I can raise this up more, and then I should be able to catch a weld on there, hopefully. Yeah, because right now, we're actually too low. It needs to be up more. But hell, even if I wanted it all the way up there, it would still work. Boy, I like that angle better on these. I get hung up on these all the time when I'm off-roading. Be sweet to have them like out of the way like that, but that is too far forward. So I don't want to cut this up until I see how those Moto-Built ones are. So we wait some more. Okay, y'all, the other spring mounts finally arrived. And I bought these on eBay because they said 3-day shipping, and it was like 7 or 8 days. So I'd have been better off just buying them straight from Moto-Built. But let's take a look at them. These things are actually really sweet. Plus, I mean, stickers, come on now. They're laser cut and they all key together, and they're 1/4-inch plate instead of, this is like 1/8-inch plate maybe. These have this slight bend in them, and they've got these tabs that lock them together. And there's just a little bit of adjustment in these. If I do use these, I can mock it up and get the exact width right and tack these, because I want to weld all this off the Jeep, but I don't want them to spread too wide. So I guess I just got to see how they fit. They're intended to be the rear YJ spring hangers. They don't have one for the front. I'm going to have to put a notch in it for where that body mount is, but I have to do that to that one too. So there's a comparison, and they're actually a little bit taller, so I can tuck them up in there a little better. I really want these to work. I didn't wait a week for these just to send them back. I waited a week for these because I wanted to send these back, and it looks like we're going to be okay. Let's get down here and hold one up there. The thing I'm worried about welding these off the Jeep is the heat's going to like pull them, and then I won't be able to fit it on there. So I may have to find something that's the same thickness to clamp in here so that I can, because I'd rather do all this on the table. All I got to do is notch this out, and I should be able to raise them up high enough to get this hole level with my line there. And I think these things are just gonna frickin' work, and they are frickin' beef. I frickin' love Moto-Built, so I shouldn't be surprised that these are sweet. So I think the crown ones are going back. You know what my favorite thing is? When you wait 7 or 8 days for a part and you finally get it, but then you have somewhere you gotta go and you don't have time to work on it. God bless, I gotta leave the house in 15 minutes. And I won't be back till like midnight. So this is going to have to wait till tomorrow. I suppose I wasn't quite ready to weld these on anyway, because remember those welds we ground off? Yeah, I never got the ones on the inside of the frame because the exhaust is in the way. I do have a needle, what's it called? A needle grinder? I do have this thing, finger grinder, that's what it's called. But this thing takes forever to chew through some welds, or I could maybe get to it with a carbide burr. But either way, I gotta at least get most of those off of there. You know, I just realized like all my progress on this Jeep is hinging on these getting back here, because there's so much stuff I can't do until this is bolted back in. So it's about high time we get her did. First thing we need to do here is get my laser out, get this roughly lined up, and figure out where I have to notch this, get that notched, and then we can get her up into place and start fitting everything. Got her lined up there, got her lined up there. We went ahead and went to the 2.5 mark. We're going for it. You know, I'm just winging it here anyway, so why not wing it on that too? So holding this about level, get that vertical line about where it goes. You can see that's about where I need to trim it out. Maybe I'll hole saw it. I do need to come down about 1 inch, or I need to trim the bottom of this, one of the two. Don't have to do the inside, just this outside, because there's no body mount there. Well, we're gonna give hole sawing it a try, see what happens. Maybe I should have just got the plasma cutter out, but I don't know. I just wanted to try something different here. Oh, here goes nothing. That took a hot minute, but it worked. You just got to clean that up a little bit. You know that old saying, measure twice, cut once? I'm more of a measure nonce, cut twice, because you just guessed kind of a guy, so we got something to fix. I got the location right, but I did not need to go down that far. And so now, the problem is, if I line that roughly up and get that roughly level, you see how much more I took than I need? I won't be able to get the camera in there, but the way that this bevels away, there's like a giant hole, like I can see down through it. So I'm gonna take those circles that I cut out of this, I'm gonna cut it in half so it's like a half moon, and I'm gonna weld them back in here. I only need down to this little score line. So like right there, that angle threw me off. I wasn't expecting that gaping hole to be there, so we're gonna address it. There you go, half moon thingy dingy welded back in. And there's one with it ground up. I should have just did that in the first place. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to grind down these tabs a little bit. You see where I kind of have them sharpied in? I'm going to take about half of them off. And that way, when I key it in on this, right now they're flush. And I want them to just be like recessed just a little bit so I can get some weld in there. So we're just going to do that real quick. You know me, I'm Captain Overkill, right? So we got these kind of low spots in the frame from where I probably got a little aggressive with the air hammer. And we're just gonna fill them in with some weld and grind it back smooth. Ooh, I gotta sit down on my booty for this. Ooh. Meh, good enough. There we go. And you know what? It's dinner time. And maybe if I get froggy, maybe I'll weld one of these on there when I get done eating. And maybe not. We're gonna weld these together before they go on the Jeep. And we're gonna clamp them all together. And I got a really cool way of doing this. This is one of my leaf spring bushings. So we're gonna bolt it through there. But we don't want it to like be so tight that the leaf won't go in there, right? So we're gonna add a washer. And then this piece is the exact width of my frame, and we're gonna clamp it through there, but I'm gonna do the same thing with this little piece of sheet metal and slide it in there, super thin stuff, just so it, you know, has that little bit of leeway, because the last thing you want is to get done and then it's so tight it won't slide over the frame, right? I can deal with a little bit of an air gap. I cannot deal with it not fitting. It's a tight fit. Not gonna go full potato with this just yet. So it's got a little bit of wiggle room still. Helps if you know, grab the actual piece that goes in there. In theory, jigging this up should work great, but it's kind of risky, and it ended up working great on one and not so great on the other. So I don't know, do it at your own risk. So that's everything. Now we can just weld the snot out of this, and hopefully it'll fit when I'm done. Not too bad. Now if I did this right, this should be able to come out without killing myself. The real problem is if I go to weld this inside, is it gonna try to pull itself shut? Try to stick this like over at one end, do this side and then flip it. Oh no! What did I melt all over it? What the shit? I'm stopping short of the end because if I remember right, this piece right here nests up to the bottom of the frame and I don't want that to get too fat there and not fit on it. I don't know if I can get this shim back in there though. How do I spread this? Maybe the General Motors Vortec engine exhaust stud spreader tool will do the trick, because I've got one of those. Stand by. This little guy. Wear eye protection, whatever. It's to spread the bolts out when your exhaust manifolds won't line up on the Vortec. Well, that's in there. Well, I can promise you one thing, she ain't ever coming apart again. Oh, shit. Oh, boy. Y'all don't need to watch that twice, do you? Do you? Well, it's gonna be time lapse then. This one was being kind of tricky and I'm kind of nervous about it. It didn't want to fit right. I thought this was the same size bushing, but it was making it crooked, so I took the sleeve out of the other one. Welds turned out pretty decent. Gotta say I'm pretty happy with that. First step, I guess. Let's see if it fits the frame. If it doesn't, we're in trouble. Oh yeah, I still got those welds I gotta grind off. Oh, she's gonna go. She's gonna be a little tight about it, but she's gonna go. This is what I was talking about before, this flat ledge. When you push it all the way up, it literally tucks up against the bottom of the frame, so it gives you one more place to weld. And that's why I stopped those welds there, because I just didn't want it to interfere from getting up in there. We might have a problem on our hands here. Bottle's on and I'm sitting on the pin, which means I don't think I got enough to do all that welding on both sides, and I do not want to run out halfway through. It's always got to be the gas. You know, due to the movie magic and all, you guys can't tell that it's been over a week since I touched this Jeep. Life is hectic. You gotta remember, guys, I'm not a YouTuber. I'm just a regular guy that has a crappy YouTube channel, and I got a real life and a full-time job and kids and water heaters that are going out, and so anyway, we're back out here and I want to show you something. So now that these are done, I sprayed a little bit of that Steal It paint inside of there just for where it sandwiches the frame. But I noticed a bit of a problem here. Somehow this one got messed up. And I think I'm going to be able to make it work. And I just don't know if you'll be able to see it on here. Cameras make things hard, but I mean, you saw me when I did this. I had it like flush on the table. I clamped it. I put everything in and clamps and bobs and bits, and this one must have worked. But I don't think it's going to be that big of a deal because it still fits over the frame. It's a little tight right here, and the bolt still fits through both of them. So I feel like it's going to be okay, but I don't know. I think it's this one. It just kind of looks a little angled. But I guess they all kind of look a little weird. That one looks like it's leaning that way. So, you know what? Whatever. We're just going to put them on there. We're going to just hang that angle finder off the bottom of this. Like, I'm going to use the line laser to get it, like, where I want up and down. And then to get it level this way, we're just going to put the angle finder across that sleeve. And we're going to tack it. And I think I'm going to do that tonight. But I don't know if I've got enough welding gas to fully weld it. So really the only thing I've gotten done since the last clip that I recorded was I threw the bumper back on, finished trimming this out. I still got to figure out how I want to seal this hole up. And I went ahead and bolted my steering box back up. That's all back in place now. And that's about it. Just been dealing with life, you know? Alright, y'all. So not only do we have this all lined up where it needs to be, but I've actually traced this line on the ground over to the other side, and I've got it lined up with it over there too, because it's real easy to just point a line at this, but like you could be at an angle. So now I know I'm perfectly true, and actually when I hold this up there, it'll cast through this hole and into this hole, so I can kind of make sure that that's looking square too. The biggest thing is I cannot bump this, and it's kind of hard to get this right where it needs to be and get it tacked without whacking into it. And on top of that, I have to try to get this as level as I can by eyeball. So yeah, I told you it gets a little tight. Huh. Pretty daggone close. I suppose I'm just a hair off. I could knock it a hair back forward, which I probably do here. The only thing I don't like, it's not super level. The whole, like if you just look at the top line, it's kind of running uphill, but that means I need to raise the back a little and lower the front a little, and I am running into this. So I suppose for me to get it perfect, probably better just grind a little bit more out of this. Pretty well got it where I want it here. I figured out that if I make this perfectly level, this ends up too low. So it's a little bit uphill, but it's fine. Let's see if the old washer trick worked. Oh, perfect. It's 0.1, 0.2 degrees. I am good with that. Whew. Guess that's where it's gonna live. Oh, and for the record, this is 3.2 degrees uphill, so I will try my best to get that as close as I can on the other side. It really doesn't matter. It's not gonna change nothing. Alright, I spared you guys my frustration on this side because I started mocking it up and it became really obvious it wasn't gonna be easy, and now it's 2 hours later. I finally have it tacked kind of in the right spot. It's that bad. This is the one that tweaked on me and nothing wants to play nice, but I finally got this. It's at 0.1, so it's pretty level. Got that pretty well where it's at. This is not at the same angle, but if I make it the same angle, I can't get this right, and I'd rather this be right. So, whoop-de-doo. This one's at 4.2 degrees, kind of running uphill. The other side was only at 3, but whatever. The other little issue is, if you look like way in the back, there's that piece that kind of butts up to the frame. You can see it's actually kind of crooked, and if I push that all the way up to the frame, then this whole thing, like, it cocks to the side. So I'm just gonna have to fill that with weld, and that's just because of how this one tweaked. So my suggestion to you, if you do these, don't weld them off the Jeep. I know that it's the only way you can get some of that weld, but now that I'm looking at it, I'm looking inside where I did some of that weld, I could have reached that from out here. Yeah, I know it sucks. Doing the backside would have been like almost upside down welding, but I think keeping these things square is more important. So, you know, lesson learned, but it's on there. It's close enough to the right spot. We can burn it in. I don't think I have enough welding gas though. I mean, it's on 0 PSI and somehow it's still going, but I know as soon as I start to lay a fat bead, it's gonna turn into Swiss cheese on me. So I think I'll fill it up, be back out here tomorrow. Or maybe the next day. I gotta do a water heater. You know, lately I've had to switch out to the old plumbing hat. Let me show you what's going on here. So right now I'm in the process of putting in a new 50-gallon water heater. I had a 40-gallon, and the problem is it's taller. So now I'm having to build these stupid risers because the supply lines I got, they're so stiff. And when I screw them on here, like, I can barely, that's like as much bend as I can get out of it. So they have to go way up there. So I'm in the middle of doing that. I'm just starting the hot side now. But in the last month, I've also had to do a new sump pump, and then that's my kitchen sink drain, 2-inch copper, and it decided to just rot out. So I had to build a whole new, like, everything up there and all this through the floor. And of course, they didn't have one of these cool fittings to go from 2-inch copper to 1.5 PVC. So I had to go from 2-inch to 2-inch, and then from 2-inch, because, you know, every different pipe has to be a different size. Some of them are inner, some of them are outer, whatever. You can laugh at my little couplers if you want, but they work, and it got it done. But I'll tell you one thing, I hate plumbing, and I'm like so looking forward to getting done here. Then I gotta mess with the gas line too, because this thing's so much bigger, it like sits right up against this. And I don't really want to try to move all this, so I don't know what I'm gonna do yet. We'll figure it out. All right, we got her done. My solution for this being too close was I put this foam there, and I did this little jobber to pull it this way. Got those all hooked up. Had to get a second elbow thing to get it to clear around that for the vent draft thingy. Boy, that hot shower was nice though. I had been slumming it for 3 or 4 days there. And I even angled the little overflow pipe to sit right above the sump pump. So if it ever drips or does something stupid, it'll right into there. Since I had to go buy a water heater and do all that crap, anybody want to guess what I forgot to do on Friday? I forgot to exchange my tank or fill it or whatever. It's Sunday right now. I think I'm just going to call it here so I can post this video for you guys. Just imagine me welding those on, because that's where they're going to go. And once those are on, progress is really going to start happening, because the springs can go in, the axle can get bolted in, and then I can start doing the RCVs and the brakes and the outers and the hubs and the steering and all the things. Let's get to it. See you next time.